So I started therapy. Why have I started therapy? What am I dealing with that made me think this is something I needed to do? How did I choose a therapist? How is therapy going? What do I feel I'm getting out of it? And why am I talking about this on YouTube and on my podcast? If you're new here, hi, I am Ree from mummyof4.com. Thank you for hanging out with me. Today, I'm going to do my very best to answer all of those questions to the best of my ability. If you caught a recent life update on my YouTube channel, you'll know that yes, I have started therapy. And I touched on why I was starting therapy in that video, but I actually recorded that before any of it had started. I was really nervous about putting that video out. And not for the reasons you might think, because I've got to say, I have always believed that therapy is a really positive thing. I have always been in awe and perhaps a little jealous of how far ahead America seems compared to the UK with acknowledging and taking care of their mental health and actually normalising seeing therapists to discuss things. It literally makes so much sense that if something has gone on in your life, that you tackle it at the time rather than sweeping it under the carpet. Imagine that if we could all, as we deal with trauma, a bereavement of a loved one or even a pet, we have a financial difficulty, we lose a job, any form of incident that is difficult to deal with in our lives. Imagine rather than just sweeping it under the carpet and having a stiff upper lip, we actually dealt with it. And that way, each little event could be chunked away and managed and dealt with. We could have strategies. Instead, do you know what we do? We just keep sweeping under the carpet until we just have a really lumpy rug. I was not nervous about sharing that I was starting therapy because I feel like there's actually a stigma attached to therapy, although there is still a stigma attached to therapy in the UK. But I don't personally feel ashamed in any way to say that I am starting therapy. I am proud in a way that I am taking care of my own mental health. And I hope that if my children ever in their lives come across anything where they are struggling with anything at all, then I can then say to them, I did therapy, this was my experience with it, it's absolutely fine, and that they can be encouraged to take the steps to look after their mental health. And I am modelling that behaviour for them. So the reason I am sharing this across my channels is because if it gives one person the confidence to go, oh, it's okay to take care of my mental health, it's a good, positive thing to go to therapy, there's no shame attached to it. If one person hears what I'm saying and does that, it's been worth sharing. The only reason I think I was nervous to share it was because the internet's a funny place. I am proud to say that I'm doing this to look after my mental health. I'm proud to say to my children, to my family, to anyone that wants to discuss it with me, this is what I'm doing to take care of my mental health. But whenever you do anything that steps slightly outside the box on the internet, the trolls just love it. I think that's the only reason that I was nervous, just the reaction to it. And I've got to say, 99% of people have been just wonderful and amazing and have been grateful that I've discussed it. So for me, that's enough. If I've got to deal with some negativity or some trolling, and I know what people say, that you put yourself out there, it's to be expected. And while that's not right, as in not morally right, you shouldn't have to deal with anything, it's probably statistically pretty accurate, which is sad. The people, I guess, that feel the need to attack other people on the internet probably have their own issues going on, because otherwise they wouldn't feel that anger to need to take out on a stranger on the internet. Anyway, that is why I'm sharing it. Let's start with the why. That is why I'm sharing my experience, because if it helps anyone at all feel like they then have the confidence to take those steps that they have been wondering about taking to take care of their mental health, then that's been worthwhile. That's the why. That's why I'm sharing anyway. Why am I actually attending therapy? This is a slightly more complicated question. It's partly complicated because of some kind of unwritten rules that I have with sharing things on my channel, my podcast, things like that. One of these unwritten rules is that I am not discussing anything that's not my place to discuss. For example, we lost a family member we bereaved recently, and leading up to her passing away, she was terribly unwell. And during this time, I didn't even want to say that we were dealing with an unwell family member. So all I shared online was that we were going through some family stuff. And while that seemed cryptic at the time, it just didn't feel appropriate to say it. Does that make sense? So sometimes it's not my place to discuss other people. And some of the things I'm talking about in therapy involve other people. I can't delve too much. It's not my place to share anything online that might show anyone else in less than a positive light. Does that make sense? So that has to filter what I say in some respects, just out of respect for other people. And the other slight complication is there is another, how do I put this, person in my life, or that has been in my life, that potentially may, gosh, this is very cryptic, isn't it? But I'm trying to explain to you why it's difficult for me to discuss it without shooting myself in the foot, really. There is somebody that if I did discuss them publicly, that they may make life difficult for me. I think that's probably the most sensible way to say it. So I hope that makes sense. Sorry if that was a bit cryptic. But hopefully that explains why I am sometimes a little bit cryptic. It's not because I'm trying to withhold anything, because I want to be as transparent as possible with you, but because there are certain restrictions then that prevent me from full disclosure. So with all that said, why have I decided to start therapy? There are a number of issues, and I think if we're honest, most people have some issues that hold them back in some ways in their life. I wouldn't say that I feel my mental health is dreadful at the moment by any stretch. But if you have a car and you're driving your car and a warning light comes on, is it better to get the car looked at by someone that knows what they're doing? Not me. I can drive a car, just about put fuel in a car, and then that's me done. So is the time to look at that car when the warning light comes on, the orange warning light? My husband, who does know more about cars than me, tells me any red warning lights, I'm going to stop driving immediately and phone him because he does know more about cars. But is the best time to get it dealt with the orange warning light, when the red warning light comes on, or when the car starts chugging out billowing smoke and smelling funny and making a clunking noise? I feel like over the years, I have ignored some amber warning lights and just kept calm and carried on. Yay! Just as we're expected to do. The very British, keep calm and carry on. But also the motherhood factor of just gotta keep going, hamster wheel, can't get off, gotta stay strong for everyone else. But something I'm learning myself, I'm trying to discuss more that the self-care isn't selfish. If you don't put on your own oxygen mask first, because our natural instinct is no, we must take care of our children first. The reason on an airplane they ask you to put your own oxygen mask on first is if you have put on someone else's oxygen mask first, say you've got 3 children with you, managed to put on one of their oxygen masks, and then you pass out because you haven't put on your own, you can't help anyone. Whereas if you've put on your own oxygen mask, you can then put the oxygen masks on everyone else around you, and you are there to care for them, and you are there to take action to help them. If you stop breathing, and the metaphor here, if my mental health is suffering, I'm not at my best, I can't look after my children. So that's why they ask you to put your own oxygen mask on first. And I don't think I've been doing that. I'm getting better at it. I do factor in time for exercise. I used to, years ago, even think that taking time for exercise was selfish because I should be either working to earn money or I should be doing something with the children or spending that time, that resource with the children. I've managed to get my head around the looking after my physical health so that I don't get ill, so that I can look after everyone else. I've realised that your mental health is so tied, so closely linked with your physical health, that if your mental health isn't right, then you can have physical symptoms. You can feel more tired. You're just not functioning as well. Going back to these analogies, I feel like if you take a plumbing analogy, there's been like a dripping tap of issues over the years, a number of issues that have never been addressed and I've never dealt with. I've just swept them under the carpet. I've got a lumpy rug and it's been like drip. And I just know that now is the time to get them sorted when it's manageable. Getting a plumber out to fix a leaky tap is going to be a smaller job, a more manageable job than getting a plumber out to fix a flood and all of the mess that goes with that. I think there's only so much build up that anyone can deal with. What I don't want is to let this go and end up with a flood. I'm now trying to manage my mental health and to take steps to address things that really should have been looked at a very long time ago. Then I hope I will be in a position to say to my children, as they come up with things, I want to bubble wrap them and protect them from the world. I never want them to have to face any difficulties at all. I'm their mother, that's what I want. I also know that's not realistic and that they will at some point face difficulties. For example, we recently lost a family member. Really, the time for them to deal with that is now, and not just when they're older, when they've also got this whole big pile of stuff, of other things that have happened to them to deal with. My hope is I can deal with all these issues. If you've been following me for a while, you'll know I love a productivity hack, an organization hack. I like decluttering. The reason for all of this is because I like to make my life easier. My kind of tagline on all my videos from forever is like making parenting easier, trying to make life easier. I've got a lot of children. I have 4, hence the YouTube channel name, Mummy of 4. Having lots of children means that for me, I can get more organized, put more routines in place to make things easier, or I can just feel like I'm drowning in day-to-day life. I feel like going to therapy to sort things out and to pull out anything that might be holding me back, any limiting beliefs. I've got a lot of those. There's a lot of those. We're going to go into some of these issues a bit more in a minute. I feel like it's a productivity hack because I've listened to on Audible quite a lot of self-development books. I did a podcast episode recently about lessons I've taken away from some amazing books I've read. So check that out after you've watched or listened to this. I feel like with therapy, it's like a book that can talk back. It's all that amazing information, but I can take that amazing information from the books. You can do the exercises in the books where you journal on this, whatever the exercises might be. There are some brilliant ones, and I'll put links to the ones that I especially enjoyed below. But with a book, it's one-sided, isn't it? They give you the information, you do what you will with it. But with therapy, they'll ask you a question or give you an exercise, and then you'll do the exercise same as you would in a book. And then they say, but what about this? And the revelations and the realizations I've had just in such a really short time have been mind-blowing. Just, I would say mind-blowing. Some more sort of what I wanted to get out of therapy. I wanted to deal with some issues that have happened. Some that I can discuss quite openly. I had probably a pretty traumatic birth experience, specifically with Zara. I think none of them were especially calming or blissful because I had this kind of story in my head from childhood when my mother had eclampsia after giving birth to my younger sister. So I'm one of 3, and my younger sister, I was 7.5 at the time, so I remember it quite vividly. We went to see her and everyone was fine. We came away and then she had an eclamptic fit, kidney failure, very, very scary. So I had this story in my mind from a very young child that childbirth is scary, pregnancy is scary, it's dangerous. I think I had this kind of fear before all of my births. I ended up with preeclampsia coming on. I was very scared. But I wonder if I'd had this kind of therapy to deal with that before I had my children, how much more pleasant those experiences could have been. Now, I did have a pretty scary experience. I'm not going to go into the whole birth story now, but I have got videos. If you look at Zara's birthday vlogs, I've probably shared her birth story in there, or I wonder if I've got a video talking about general birth stuff. If I have, anyway, I'll find everything I can. I'll link it below. After I had Zara, just in short, I had sepsis, and then the children were stuck at home with chickenpox at the same time. So I was stuck in hospital very poorly, but couldn't even see my children, left in the middle of the night. Everyone got better and we're back home again. And then middle of the night, Zara was taken off to hospital, stuck in hospital with chickenpox. Again, away from my children, who I was the primary carer for, I'd never been away from. It was a very traumatic experience. It was scary, it was traumatic. That was never dealt with. And when I had some appointments for my kind of gynae stuff, which I talked about in that life update as well, I talked about all the what's happening with the operation stuff. But anyway, not going into that now, we're talking mental health, not physical. When I had this appointment with this one specific nurse that kind of did probing, exploratory questions, she asked about my birth experiences. And when she heard the full story, she said, wow, have you ever had any trauma counselling, birth counselling for that? And I said, no. She said, it really sounds like you need some. Until that point, it had never occurred to me. So that was definitely something that I want to address. One of the reasons I really want therapy is I feel that there are some things that have gone on when I was younger, some things that happened when I was younger. And there are some things that I know that I don't want to do as a mother. But I wonder, because I don't think anyone ever, maybe some people do, but I think a lot of people, when they've got complaints about what happened perhaps when they're younger, I don't think that the parents in question were ever setting out to do the things that their children ultimately ended up being impacted by. While my intention is to be there for my children, my intention is wholeheartedly to be the best mother I can be, I think I have this fear that I'm going to do something subconsciously to mess them up. I've got this real fear that I'll end up just not being the best mum I can, and that they're going to have these awful complaints about me and I didn't even realise I was doing something wrong. Does that even make sense? I guess what I want to do is to use therapy to pull out any muck going on in my subconscious. If you take the shower drain analogy, sometimes you're having a shower and everything seems fine, but the water perhaps isn't flowing as well down the drain as it could. And then you clean out the drain, you're like, ugh, that's just disgusting. And you have to make a real mess. And therapy is a bit like making a real mess. You've got to make a mess to get anywhere. It is work. But I feel like you put all that stuff out the drain, you didn't even realise it was there. And it's gross, and that's therapy. And it's gross and mucky while you're dealing with it and cleaning it up. But then everything flows so much smoother. I just want to clean out the muck from the drain, really, that I don't even know is there, because I think so many of us are running on these kind of subconscious limiting beliefs. I had this genuine belief before I started what I'm doing for work now, that nobody could start and make a success of a small business. Because technically what I do is a small business. I work for myself. It's technically a small business, even though I even feel like a fraud. Imposter syndrome, that's another one I have to discuss. I feel like a fraud saying that because I don't know why really, but probably something to talk to my therapist about. But I had this genuine belief that no one could make a success of a small business because that was something that was modelled for me by somebody as a child that started multiple businesses, got bored of them, chucked them in, failed at them, whatever it was. So I had this belief, and it wasn't until I called this out and went, just because this person did it doesn't mean that's true for me. There are obviously loads of people that make a success of businesses. So why can't I? Why not me? If they can do it, why can't I? And it wasn't until I called this out that I thought, wow, I didn't even know I was thinking that. Do you know what I mean? I didn't even know I was thinking that. I think my concern is what else is lurking there and how is it impacting me? Really my concern is how is it impacting my children, if I'm honest. How are my subconscious limiting beliefs potentially damaging my children? And that's something that I want to make sure is not happening. Obviously, I want to be the best and strongest version of myself as well. So I want to be more resilient. The balls we're juggling as mums, it's like a lot, isn't it? And if we've got these issues, we're also juggling like an issues from the past ball as well as a laundry and let's face it, we don't need any more balls. We need to put down some of the balls and step away from the juggling balls. It might just lighten my load day to day, and that's my hope for it. And really, the setting a good example for my children, I feel is very valuable too. Then if I can normalise it, that's why I'm talking about it. So that's why I'm doing it. That's why I'm talking about it. A lot of people have asked about how I found a therapist. Now, I thought about finding someone locally, but To be honest, I don't go to the gym. I exercise with classes online because it saves me time and hassle. And also I don't have to find a class online. I've got access to the whole internet of classes. So I feel like doing things online gives you a lot more options. That is how it works for me. If you personally feel like you would rather see someone face to face, then absolutely explore that. So I'm just telling you what's worked for me and my life. Obviously, I talk on the internet a lot, so it makes sense to do therapy online for me. You don't have to have fancy cameras or anything. You can actually access it directly from an app on your phone. This is not in any way sponsored, by the way. This is something I have sought out myself and I'm doing for myself. However, the company I'm doing it with, I did look to see if there's anything like I can share. There is a code which I will put down in the description that gives you a free week of therapy if you would like to try it. The company I have gone with is called BetterHelp. I saw it in lots of different places. I'd seen very good reviews and I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. So the code is mummyof4.com, that's my website address, /free therapy trial, I believe. Is that right? Free therapy trial? Let's check that. Yes, that's right. If you want to give it a go and you do a free trial, then if you go to mummyof4.com /free therapy trial, then that will take you to the website. You'll get a free trial. I won't get any money or anything, but apparently I get a free week as well. That's not an ad, but just to be fully transparent, then I would get an incentive the same as you if that's a trial that you decide to take. I've gone with a company called BetterHelp because I felt like, why not give it a go? I liked it because they suggest a therapist for you that matches your needs. There's a whole list of issues you can go through and you can tick all the ones you feel apply to you or resonate with you. And I feel like I had a better chance of being matched with someone online than someone locally that might have the speciality of things I want to discuss. Also, things like timings. I guess I'm not tied to office hours, to school runs. I have got a therapy session scheduled for Monday at 2 p.m. I know that will end by 3 p.m. and I can leave immediately to get my children without having to travel because I'm already here. So that really suits me. I know that I can do it from my phone. As long as I've got either Wi-Fi or 3-4G, I could be sitting anywhere and just access that from my phone. It's also got the facility to do messaging. So you can do your therapy sessions via messaging, I guess like texting. That would not be for me at all. That would just really not suit me. You could do phone calls, which would work quite well for me, I think. But then you can do video calls, which I think is the best for me anyway, because you feel like you're in the same room. You can send messages to your therapist, which I do, but like a whole conversation back and forth. I even hate that in real life through actual text messages. WhatsApp groups totally spin me out because I'm just bombarded with constant millions of messages, especially being on so many WhatsApp groups in school. If I get a friend that's messaging me, it's more than 2 messages, I'm picking up the phone because I can't be just typing back and forth and back and forth. However, if you're the kind of person that doesn't mind typing back and forth and doesn't actually want to see or hear anyone, then you could do it that way. So I like that you could set the area of expertise and you can answer these preliminary questions. They pair you up with a therapist, and if you don't mesh with, don't get along with, you're not like feeling it with one particular therapist, then you can switch, no questions asked. There's an easy button that you can do that. Whereas I guess you'd have to break up with a therapist in real life, wouldn't you, and actively choose another one. It's just really simple to switch. So that really appealed to me. My experience so far has been overall very positive. I say overall because I do find the sessions tiring and I have cried a number of times during and after the sessions. But it's like the can't make an omelette without breaking eggs analogy, or the shower gunk. Do you pull the gunk out of the shower drain so that the water keeps flowing? Or do you ignore the gunk because you can't really see it and just hope it doesn't build up to a level where your bathroom floods? I think it's time to degunk the drain. I really do. I think that's what needs to be done. So yes, overall it's been positive, but it has been emotionally tiring and draining. I did a therapy session at 9 a.m. one day and I felt quite wiped out after it and not perhaps as productive as I would be normally for working when my children are in school and I need to be productive. The next session I have booked is for 2 p.m. So that will finish by say 2:45, 3 p.m. I can then go for a nice walk, clear my head before I pick up the children, but I don't have to be super productive. If I'm feeling a bit tired after that, then that's fine. It doesn't matter. I don't need to be in really focused, concentrating mode. So a few takeaways, a few mind-blowing takeaways that I have had from therapy so far. I would not say that I suffer from anxiety all the time. However, it has been identified that there are certain areas, relationships, parts of my life where I do feel incredibly anxious. This came up in my very first session. There is a particular, gosh, how do I put this now? This is one of the times I've got to be careful. There is a particular person, let's just say there's a particular person in my life that when I know I am going to deal with them, I feel really anxious. But I didn't used to know that I was feeling anxious. Okay, this is going to sound ridiculous, so just bear with me. I didn't used to label that as anxiety. I used to just feel it. So I would feel cross, sick, hot. I would feel anxious, but I wouldn't label it as feeling anxious. I wouldn't be like, I am feeling anxiety because of this. And the simple act of calling it out has been absolutely game-changing. So it's like, I know I'm going to have an interaction with this person. I am likely to feel anxious about that. I am likely to feel anxiety about that. That's something I can deal with. I can't change the person or what they may or may not do. I can change my response to it. If the children were feeling anxious about something, I'd be like, let's try breathing activities. Let's try EFT tapping, which I've talked about before. Emotional freedom technique. Look it up. There's some brilliant videos on YouTube. That's EFT if you want to try that as a strategy for managing anxiety. But by simply labeling, I am feeling anxious about this, it has brought the whole anxiety level down. Just calling it out rather than feeling it has separated it from me. I'm not sure if that makes any sense at all, but it's worked. So that was my very first session, and that was quite a mind-blowing kind of revelation. Equally, I think the first session or even a few sessions are exploratory, getting to know each other. If I'd not had any takeaways at all from the first few sessions, I think that would have been okay. And that was where my kind of expectation was levels at. I feel like you've got to introduce yourself, haven't you, before your therapist can help you with helping yourself. Anyway, that was my kind of first revelation. Another absolute revelation was I did a video and a podcast episode recently about setting healthy boundaries with people in your life, with yourself, just healthy boundaries generally. I talked extensively about it. I feel quite passionately about it, and I've read a lot about it, and I'm trying to implement a lot of it into my life. However, until my therapist pointed out that someone in my life, a certain situation in my life, I'm now trying to assert healthy boundaries, and I'm doing this for the first time. So the other person in question may feel some pushback because I'm setting these healthy boundaries. It didn't even occur to me that all this stuff that I was talking about in depth actually applied to that particular area of my life. And that was like, it's once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. It's like, it seems so obvious, but if it was so obvious, why couldn't I see it? And I needed the help to see it. That was mind-blowing, that this theory I had and this knowledge I had about setting healthy boundaries, really, I just was totally blind to it and totally ignoring it in a really key area of my life, which, mind-blowing, that's all I can say. It's been mind-blowing. Another realization is that I am pretty independent. I probably have been most of my life. My therapist seems to think it's possible. I have created this overly independent way of being as a little bit of a defense mechanism. And it turned out that she asked me some questions about my reaction when I was younger and as an adult to when my needs weren't met and what do I do. And initially I genuinely didn't know the answer and I just cried. I was like, why am I crying? Just because I don't know the answer to this. It didn't make sense to me. She thought that's clearly something that's like you've blocked out. So we teased it out a little bit more, and I think I managed to identify that as an adult, I don't like asking for help because I have been let down in the past, and certain people in my life that I thought I could rely on, it turns out I couldn't. I've created this truth, this story that it is easier, and it's probably right, it's easier to know where you are. It's easier to not be let down. So I find if you're relying on help from someone, you're relying on someone to be there for you, to help you, whatever, and they let you down at the last minute, then you're stuck, aren't you? You were stuck. What are you supposed to do? How are you supposed to sort things out at the last minute? For whatever that might be, helping take care of the children. You think you've got something in place to take care of the children because you've got to be here, and that falls through. What happens? I created this story in my head that it's easier not to ask for help and just sort it out myself because at least I know where I stand, than to ask for help and be let down. This makes sense to me, but apparently is a coping mechanism and is not super healthy. It takes a village, and not everyone has a village. Then I think when you have been let down, perhaps then it is easier to put those walls up. My homework for this week, and when she told me what my homework was, I said, I've got to be honest, that makes me feel a bit sick. My homework for this week is to ask for help. And I said, I don't know who to ask. I don't know what to ask for. And it makes me feel a bit sick. So I'm working on it. I think I probably thought I was coming to therapy to talk about a handful of things. And I think the more that I've spoken, the more I've realised that there was more gunk in the shower drain than I was aware of. But I'm absolutely here for cleaning it out and getting everything run smoothly so that I can be my best self. At the moment, I can still justify doing that for the sake of my family, for the sake of my husband and my children. Who knows, maybe I'll end up so emotionally healthy from this, I will be okay with being myself, best self, just for myself. Who knows? I want to thank each and every one of you that has sent me messages or commented on YouTube with lovely messages of support. And I'm so glad to those of you that have said that this has given you the confidence to go and do the thing, to take care of your mental health and take those steps. I'm really glad. I am not an expert by any stretch. I want to give that disclaimer. I'm not a doctor. I'm just kind of sharing my own experiences. There are resources online. You can obviously speak to your GP and hopefully be directed in the right direction with any help and support that you need. But I am aware that the level of care that people have received from going to the GP has varied massively. I am sticking with the online, and so far, like I said, this is not sponsored, it's just sharing my experience. So far, I've found BetterHelp to be fantastic. The link that I've put on, the mummyof4.com/free therapy trial, I think at the moment you get a week's free, but if I manage to get a better deal or whatever, I will change that link to go to the best deal I can find to give you like the most free, the most discount or whatever that you can get if you just want to give it a go. And like I said, I do get not any payment for that, but just like full disclosure, additional free weeks for myself as well. So let me know down below if you have ever engaged in therapy, if it's something you're thinking about doing, and what your experience with it has been. Don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on the bell and do all those YouTubey things, and click on another video that you will find on screen now. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Bye.